A mother, a missing little girl, wigs, a switch license plate, and 1,000 miles of mystery. Tonight on STS, what really happened to 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard, last seen driving near the Colorado-Utah border with her mother, and why did her mother go to such extreme lengths to cover their tracks?
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. This is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. A lot of people come to us for Dan Markel / Adelson coverage. If you missed last night's show, all I can say is check it out. We had Donna Adelson's jailhouse daughter, and some of her insight was unbelievable. And Thursday night, we're going to get some reaction to that. And Friday, the matriarch, Carm, who is a licensed therapist and used to work with heavily addicted people, she's coming on to break down. She called me the second that interview was over and already has a lot of insight and things to share. So stand by. But tonight, right now, we are diving deep into this baffling disappearance of 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard. She spells it, just so you know, Melodee. So a little non-traditional. Buzzard, I guess like a bird, if a bird is a buzzard, if a buzzard is a bird. She is this 9-year-old California girl from the Santa Barbara-ish county area whose mother allegedly disguised her. Their new photos out today. Then changed the license plate on the car mid-road trip and then returns home, this mother, ultimately without her. Three of the best investigators you're going to find on the show tonight. We will start off with retired NYPD detective and current John Jay College of Criminal Justice professor David Sarney. Comes to us from the Big Apple, where there's a big election going on tonight. And then a man who almost needs no introduction. Next to Phil Waters, this guy, one of the more legendary detectives in the United States. 3-time Officer of the Year, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, did undercover narcotics work, a homicide detective. He's solved it all, seen it all, and kicked a little ass along the way. Detective Phil Ramos. And last but not least, coming to us from an undisclosed location, first time ever, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, just to make it mysterious, is Dr. Detective Troy Looney, who is still an active detective within the Akron Police Department. He's worked homicides and missing kids in all sorts of cases similar to what we're going to discuss tonight. This is yet, people sometimes say to me, do you ever run out of material? And I say, I live in the United States of America, and sadly, this country has got to be one of the most violent with, one of the higher rates of crimes being committed on a daily basis per capita. So the answer is, sadly, I'd like to run out of content, and then I would just talk with Carm about nothing. But there's always something brewing in the world of true crime. And today we're talking Melodee Buzzard. So I was just checking, as I always do, to see if there's any kind of last-minute sort of breaking news on this. And there is now apparently or was a verified sighting in Utah. Detectives now confirming that Melodee Buzzard, was seen on October 9th. That's when she was at this border in the region between Colorado and Utah. So they have seen her, presumably on surveillance footage. That is her last confirmed sighting alive. So let's just go around the horn to keep it simple. Detective Sarney, retired NYPD, no better police department in all the world. NYPD has more officers than most towns and cities in America have people. But Detective Sarney, what about the fact that, and a lot of you, including myself, until today, didn't really know anything about the story, so I will backtrack and take us through it. But now that there's this verified sighting of her, detective, at the Colorado-Utah border, what do you do with that photo or that video? Where do you go from there if you're an investigator?
Well, you're going to start spreading. Again, thanks for having me. You're going to start spreading, spreading it out there, getting, once you put that out into the internet, into the world, in a sense, you're going to get more eyes on ears on the ground about this. So this is what's a benefit when you get these flyers and things, and you get photos and stills. We can disseminate it to the public, so we can not just be. It's not just going to be like 300 or 400 investigators or 1,000. You're going to have thousands of people looking at this, and especially given the fact of her age, of the circumstances of her disappearance, of the fact that the mom seems to be not concerned at all, has been seeming to be negative, and she's not cooperating anymore. So what it comes down to is everyone wants to find her alive. That's the reality. That's what we want to find. But, given the fact of the way this happened and her last sighting, this is really something that it's concerning, because no one's popped up and said, I've seen her alive now or at all yet. But that's what you're hoping for. But you hope, and then who knows at this point. It's shocking to the system what a mother would do, or take her child and then not be concerned at all as to bringing her back, or even cooperating with the authorities about where she is. And that puts the cops in, this is bad. It's bad. And it's not going to happen. We'll find out, hopefully positively, but I don't know.
Yeah, this, by the way, is a map just released by detectives showing a route here. I'm going to get to the particulars in a second. Obviously, a horrific case, and we hope there's a good outcome. But these types of stories, to me, are fascinating, because you have 3 unbelievable detectives on here, and you get to see in real time how their minds work, which is different than regular people, the way they look at these things. So without further ado, Phil Ramos, Detective Ramos, to me, just a 30,000-foot view from your perspective. If this call came into the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, a missing child, and that this kid was last seen somewhere, what's the response? How high does this go on the priority list? And personally, how does it impact the detectives working a case like this?
Well, we've talked about this so much, Joel. It's all hands on deck on this one. And, this sweet little thing, why was she wearing a wig? And I mean, the answer to that is obvious. Mom didn't want to be recognized either with her or with the child. And the fact, I don't know how they know that path that the map shows. If she came through Vegas here, then there's going to be a ton of video of her coming into town and leaving town. So all these circumstances, man, I'm just going to say it, it's not going to have a good outcome. We've seen it so many times, and for the mom to be so uncooperative from out of the gate, it's just bad news. I've traveled that route many, many times. We go to Utah. In fact, we spend summers up in Panguitch. They got a great little lake up there, and we camp up there for the summer, and you keep going. That's a lot of area there, a lot of vast area. And unfortunately, it's just a matter of time before she's found.
I got to ask, and I hate to hear your answer on this. Does your gut tell you this has a bad ending from your experience?
Yeah. With all the circumstances, changing the plate, wigs, not cooperating with the cops. Yeah, this isn't going to have a good outcome for this sweet little girl.
And if you put that map back up, see if you're able to do that. I didn't notice this myself. I think I can do. There we go. Just to what Detective Phil Ramos was saying, literally right through Las Vegas. Detective Ramos, on a case like this, have the Lompoc police, if I'm pronouncing that correct, that's the county where she was living in, have they made a call to your old fellow officers and said, hey, can you help us look through surveillance video from these days? And are they doing that? Have they scoured all that video?
Yeah, they're doing that, and because this is involved interstate jurisdiction, the FBI surely will get involved into this. And it's a matter of how much time did she spend here in Vegas, or did she just stop, fill up, and keep going up into Utah? If she got out anywhere, there's going to be video of her going to literally any gas station here, 7-Eleven, and stuff like that. That will be there. And like I said, it's a matter of time before they come up with a more verifiable evidence of where her vehicle was. That whole rental car thing is just another red flag that you have to add to it. And, you know, they're October 9th, man, it's been a long time. So hopefully they've gone deep into her digital footprint and, you know, checked all the cell sites that her phone was pinging between where she was and where she ended up and the time she was reported missing and all that stuff. There's just such a volume of electronic investigation that has to be done before they can even start narrowing down. I mean, they'll get down to, well, she spent 20 minutes at this intersection, or she spent a half hour between Vegas and Cedar City, and then Cedar City on up to Panguitch, and then across Panguitch. I mean, they'll get that down pretty well.
Is there any chance she went through Las Vegas without being spotted on surveillance video, or there's too many cameras?
No. I mean, she would. You know, with license plate reader, she could have popped up on a patrol car's license plate reader, and they just haven't been able to narrow that down. But that's one thing about Vegas, man. You can't come through here and not be on somebody's video somewhere.
Yeah. So Dr. Detective Troy Looney, I'm hoping your Wi-Fi holds up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Happy birthday to your beloved wife. Well, I will not reveal her age, although you did to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do you that favor so you don't get thrown off the cruise ship. But
right.
So by the way, we're looking at photos that police just revealed, and this is both of them, Melodee and her mother Ashlee, who both have unusual spellings. Instead of a Y, it's Ashlee and Melodee. But you see them here with wigs on. Dr. Detective, when you have an active investigation for a 9-year-old, how does that hit differently for detectives?
So again, yeah, it's going to hit differently because of the nature of the case itself, right? With the juvenile missing and, you know, the circumstances, her being uncooperative, just very unusual, very strange. So again, as Phil said, it's all hands on deck. Those are my exact words I was going to mention. And, you know, we're networking, we're communicating. I'm surprised was there an Amber Alert issue for this in this circumstance, or is that more of a timely issue if it were closer to the date? Just thinking about that, you know, I'm concerned, you know, what kind of communications have taken place? You know, what is the reason for the wigs? Is there someone they're running from, or what kind of communications also, email track and so forth, has been scoured? And, you know, did she tell, you know, Melodee this is a game we're playing, or what's going on? Or I would check the history. I'm sure looking at the history of previous incidents and so forth. So just a total concern with, you know, what we're trying to find, or what we're trying to, you know, trying to locate her and trying to determine what's the cause and reason for this.
Yeah. Dr. Detective, he's from Akron. 2 years deserves a love ya, Ohio, OHIO, Ohio. So let me just break down some of the specifics here, because people are brand new to this story. Melodee Buzzard, you're looking at her in that gray sweatshirt. You're also looking at her adorable face on the left-hand side. I have a 9-year-old, so this breaks your heart as a parent. And I was just with her at my son's t-ball practice, and I mean, just the innocence of a 9-year-old. It is, you know, if you're a parent, you know, but they are some of the most innocent, curious creatures you will ever find. So Melodee is 9. She goes missing from I'm told it's pronounced Lompoc, California. She's 4'6", about 60 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. Now, her father was Rubiel Meza. He dies in a 2016 crash when she was just a little baby. So he dies in a vehicle crash back in 2016. Ashlee then, who's now only 35, homeschools Melodee, and reportedly isolates her from the extended family. I'm going to run through a timeline real quickly here, and then we'll get to questions and deconstructing this. And by the way, the FBI is involved. And by the way, I did not fire Phil nor Scott. I speak to Scott almost every day and Phil a little less frequently. They're coming back. Everyone is just, like I said, been super busy, and we're mixing things up here. But I already reached out to Scott about an Ellen Greenberg question. So I think that was Ned Smith. I don't have the power to fire it. I wish I could fire people. I would, but I can't. October 7th. So this is basically a month ago. Mom Ashlee rents a white 2024 Chevy Malibu with California plates, and that's important. Surveillance shows both mother and daughter at the rental counter. Melodee is wearing a wig and hood. You see it right here. That's the rental car agency. And the mother is wearing one as well. Now, that day, October 7th, the car begins a multi-state trip toward Nebraska, passing through Nevada and Utah. Investigators now say that the Malibu's license plate was switched from California to a New York license plate, HCG 9677, a deliberate act to avoid detection. So let's hold it right there. Never good. I guess if you don't own your car, it's somewhat understandable. But Detective Sarney, what do you do with this 2024 Chevy Malibu? First of all, it's probably one of the more common cars in the country. It's got California plates. But what do you make of the fact that she's renting the car and then switching the plates here?
Yeah, she's obviously not one to be found, and that's a big issue, and that's why you have a lot of negativity and feelings toward this whole case, because it looks like it's going to go south. But the reality is you need to still do the best work you can, because you still work upon hope. You expect the best. You hope for the best, but unfortunately expect the worst. That removal of the plate, obviously, and the one good thing, it's a rental car, because I know a lot of these cars have GPS, so that's a benefit on that end. She didn't want this car to be found or discovered. I don't know if she had a vehicle herself. She decides to leave. And again, my issue is the homeschooling and the fact that they took almost a couple of months to find out she wasn't even being homeschooled. She was disappeared. And the school made the report, not the mother. The school made the report. You are behind the eight ball. And that's why this backtracking is taking place, because now you have to really spread out. You're going to look at credit card records, credit card history, because one thing is, you have to use a credit card unless you have an immediate amount of funds and cash to do anything. How much cash did she have available to herself? This is obviously some sort of plan and involvement. And the child that she has with her is playing the game with the mom. So she doesn't know what's going on in her mom's head. And apparently the mother was on some sort of decline after the death of the baby, of Melodee's father. So whatever that's going on, her now isolating herself. You could look at all of those avenues. But what it comes down to is now you got to get the car. You have to, see any fueling available, where it was fueled at. You're going to have to work on this car, because you're getting nothing from the mother. And apparently there's video out of the mom, with posters of her daughter, and she's taking them down in the neighborhood. So this is a woman who has some serious issues. She knows what she did. Everyone knows what she did, but it's not what you think. It's what you can prove in court and what you can prove to make the arrest. That's why there's no arrest yet, because we really have nothing. Do people go missing every day? They do. Do children go missing? That becomes a special category, especially in New York City, special category missing. So you'll have the Amber Alert out, and you'll have everybody out there, hospitals looking. So you're doing all of that. But here comes the fact is, do we know what she brought with her when she went on this journey? And that's something that we want to maybe find out through any of the cameras that are available from wherever she stopped. We have photos of her. We don't have photos of the car, those LPRs, license plate readers. Hopefully you've gotten something out of that. I don't know how, where the rural area is. That car, obviously, if they've conducted a search warrant on that car, what are you going to get from that car? Is there something there that leads to believe that Melodee obviously is no longer here? And I say that no longer here, but no longer alive. And, you do everything. And I know, Phil, and Doc are all believe this. This is something that bothers you. It inherently bothers you that you want to get to the truth and find out where she is. Good, we want the positive out of it, but we have to be prepared for the worst. And we investigated accordingly. The totality of circumstance, the facts of the investigation will lead us to the truth, even though the mother doesn't want to help, and the family, and I believe the grandmother's not even involved in this.
Yeah. The mother apparently did have a pretty significant mental health decline, as David just said. She was being homeschooled, and then apparently the school noticed, because you have to get materials from the school district, and the school district realized that she wasn't even around. And I think that's part of how this whole thing got triggered. And the father, who is no longer with us, Rubio Meza, his side of the family says that she has been sort of progressively distancing Melodee from that side of the family, which was concerning to them. Phil Ramos, to you, and then I've got another question for you. And now I can't think of I know what I was going to ask you. Personally, how difficult is it? Because this mother is apparently not cooperating at all. You have her in an interview room and you're asking her questions, and there's a 9-year-old that's missing. I mean, I know you're professional and obviously 3-time Officer of the Year, but how difficult is it to sort of have to restrain yourself and build this rapport when you probably want to just grab her by the lapels and say, tell me what happened here?
Yeah, that is a very difficult thing. It's one of the hardest things that we have to do, aside from knocking on the door at 2 a.m. to tell somebody their loved one isn't coming home. When you're sitting in that interview room with her and you know that this child is missing, you expect a concerned parent to be grieving and expecting, why are you guys talking to me? Get out there and find her. Where is she at? What has happened to her? Absent any of those questions and her attitude, you have no place to focus other than her. So with her not being cooperative, then you go to her circle of people, her inner circle, and you start talking to them, and maybe get a little more firm or a little more aggressive with them, because if they don't give up what they know about her, then that just adds to the mystery of this whole thing. And you're right, man. It gets hard to be sitting in there knowing that she very likely did something awful to her own child, and it's just a matter of time before she's found, and you want to get to that result. In cases like this, during this period from when she disappeared, you're sitting there knowing that her body's going to show up somewhere. You almost wish for that to happen right away, so that you've got a place to start. Once her body's found, then you got a crime scene, and then you can start working backwards from there. But I've crossed my fingers so many times on cases like this, and they just never have a good ending. Maybe it's me, maybe it's the things that I remember about 33 years of doing this, but it's hard. It's hard to maintain your composure with somebody like that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how to ask this in a subtle way, so I'll just ask you, Detective Ramos, if she was going to take her daughter's life, which appears to be the thinking here, why would she travel toward Nebraska? Why wouldn't she just do it somewhere in the county where they're from? Does that give you any sort of potential hope that, I don't know, maybe she found someone online who is willing to take custody of her kid, something along those lines? I assume they're going to be doing searches for that sort of thing too, to see if she was corresponding with anyone in Nebraska or somewhere along the way.
Yeah, you hope for that. We come across so many weird and bizarre situations like this, and they just seem to be even more prominent as time goes by, with the advent of social media and all of that coming into play. So you absolutely want to know, why were you going there? I mean, did you do something to this poor child when she was there with you at home, or did something happen between the time you left and by the time you hit your destination in Nebraska? It's all, man, right now it's just a mystery, and you just want to get all that digital information that you can and hope against hope that it's going to work out. That disgusting as it may sound, that may be the best thing to happen, is she sold this child to, human traffickers or something like that. At least the child is still alive, but it's so unlikely, especially, if you're going to the heartland of America where stuff like that is unheard of. If you're going to some other high crime rate areas where things like that happen on a regular basis, then you could say, oh, maybe she's still around. Maybe she's been sold, as disgusting as that sounds. I mean, it makes me just want to wonder, why am I even uttering those words, as this little girl was sold to some human traffickers? But that could be the case.
Yeah. That's the sort of thing that I literally, I just can't wrap I understand it, but there's a cognitive dissonance. Like I understand it on a, like a surface level, but if you were really think about that, that is just beyond the pale. Emmy Nikolov, who often fills in a lot of gaps for us on news stories. She has family in Nebraska. Dr. Detective Troy Looney, it goes without saying, I'm sure, that Lompoc detectives have obviously, if this is true, have reached out to family, right? They have to have done that. The bigger question here is, they're seeing October 7th. Today is election day, November 4th. If you haven't voted, get out there and vote. But it's basically a month. Detective Sarney talked about how they're way behind the 8 ball. How big of a deficit and a problem is that for law enforcement to be that behind here?
In terms of deficit, I was thinking about the timeline. So, of course, this deep dive into the forensics goes way back. It's going to have to go back before October 7th and to see what was going on, what kind of communication. Because obviously, as we all are thinking, she's planned this. This has been planned maybe for some time now. And just contingent upon what happened or what the condition is or status of the child. But yeah, definitely, I was thinking, like Emmy said, is there other family elsewhere or close by or in the route and in between the route of pathways traveled? And like Phil said, has the worst case, I guess not worst case, but one of the scenarios that we're pondering is, has it been like a issue of her staying with someone, what kind of evaluations she may have had in between, if there's a mental health breakdown. So again, backtracking a little bit about creating a rapport, even if she has not been communicating, maybe, we will never be aggressive towards her because you want to keep the lines of communication open always. So again, it just may take a certain amount or extra amount of compassion to find something to get her talking, or maybe her conscience will kick in after a while and maybe she'll come forward. But again, sometimes it's about asking the right type of question or uncovering evidence that we're already aware of what's kind of happened, and just getting to the why of, what is the reason behind this, or maybe developing some kind of story in that capacity.
COE says we've got a SOT, otherwise known as sound on tape in the news business. Can you play that? It's from the aunt. I'm not sure whose, but I assume it's from the father's side, I think. COE, are you able to play that, please? Oh, did you say you had a sound bite?
Yeah, it was extremely hard.
Was that the shortest soundbite in the history of the world, or is there more?
Yeah, it was extremely hard to watch that because, I know my niece went out there, my mother-in-law and family members, and put signs up there, not only for the community to see it, but for Ashlee to remember, that you have this beautiful daughter and we want her back, we want her safe. And for her to just rip them down like they didn't mean anything, it's heartbreaking.
Detective Sarney, I mean, videos, the mother removing signs. So let's just start with that. I mean, here's family putting up signs and photos, they say, to obviously remember her and keep her front and center. And now the mother is taking the signs down. That's obviously, abnormal behavior. A mother would want to do anything to find this child. What do you do with this mother who appears to obviously not be in great mental health shape, but she has all the information you need?
Well, that's why when you get in, we call it the box. When you get in the box with this person, you try to find some investigator that can develop some rapport with her, some bond, to try to get a conversation with her going where it's not accusatory. You're just trying to get information. You're going from, you took a travel, where'd you travel to? What'd you do when you were there? Who'd you see? What else did you do? But how far her mental decline is and how angry she is, because it looks like she's trying to end a chapter. I'm speculating. I'm not a psychologist. I'm kind of a hack in that sense. But she's taking photos down and wanted for these flyers out there, these look for information, and she's taking them down as to this, to ignore what she's done. And we've seen, unfortunately, and I would say the doctor and Phil also said the same thing. We've seen these cases where there have been homicides, where they've murders, and they've somehow covered the face up. So this is maybe her way of doing that and kind of distance yourself from the daughter and in what she may have done. And again, it's not what we have to find that. It's not what we think, it's what we can prove. I keep going back to that. We don't have a lot. You really don't. And you're going by forensics evidence and trace evidence and video surveillance. And this is the problem with video. Some places may have video, this is over a month at this point. Do they ain't have any more video left? So you're going to have to try to go to any location where she might have used a credit card. Any of that. It's disturbing to see what she was doing with those photos, but it shows the fact that her cooperation, she's gone down that rabbit hole that may not recover. But we need to find an investigator that can find a way to talk to her, somebody, a social worker that we could just somehow just say, listen, we're here to help you. We're not here to accuse you. We're here to help you. All we want to do is go back and track over what you did, because we just want to make sure we want to see if you're okay and Melodee's okay, as opposed to, we don't want to be accusatory. Even though you feel that way, you really have to sit there and be that empathetic individual, I call it the empathetic professional in this case, and just try to get the answers. And I don't know how far they're going to get the answers from that. So you're going to go back to the evidence that you could find, and it may be lacking because of the amount of time that's taken place. That's why you go back to the car, go back to her, find anything. You can search warrant in the house, see anything in the house, but she's alive when she leaves the house. We know she's alive to a certain point. We just don't know what happened to her between that point downward.
By the way, shout out to an OG at STS. That's Blackwood Door. I'm not sure what's going on, but I see it in the chat. People are offering condolences. So Blackwood Door, whatever you're going through, I'm sorry to hear that. And as always, we are here. I will try to shoot you an email later to check in on you. But here are those photos. Someone's saying it was probably hard for her to see the pictures, but these are those photos that she was taking down. Where is Melodee? Where is Melodee? You see that there. You see the street, a quiet looking neighborhood in Lompoc, California, which I think encompasses part of Santa Barbara, or at least maybe like San Luis Obispo, in that area. There are other things, details I want to get to, but Phil Ramos, I know you've worked with them obviously closely on other cases, and you talked about crossing state lines. So the FBI is involved here. How do they slide into an investigation like this? How do local authorities work with the FBI on a case like this?
Well, they'll set up de facto task force to contact every agency that they know where the car was at. The FBI has the resources and the manpower to reach out much more than the local authorities do. And so it really boils down to how much they're able to get. And, David was spot on, man. The amount of time that has passed since this incident occurred. How many times was that rental car rented out again before the cops were able to effect a search warrant on it? And how much cooperation were the cops getting in Nebraska from the family members? So much of these circumstances and this evidence really goes to her state of mind and her mental decline. That's the biggest thing that we're up against in this particular case, is when she has reached that point where as we suspect, she has done something horrible to her daughter, and now the extent that she's going to avoid that detection and to draw attention away from herself. Anything that just says, we can only guess what's going on in this lady's mind. And just like we've all said, somebody's got to be able to reach in and establish rapport with her. And hopefully that'll come from family members and say, look, she reacts good to other mothers. She reacts well to certain individuals. And the forensically trained child abduction people that the FBI has and some local agencies have are really going to come into play here. Someone's got to be able to get to her and at least get some kind of information from her.
Yeah, and Phil, I think you broke up a touch at the very end there, but I think you were saying what I was going to ask, which is, are they going to bring in, a therapist, a mental health expert to try to, who really understand the human mind, to try to see if they can get through to her if detectives can?
Yeah, absolutely, because there's only so much law enforcement can do with the limited information and the no cooperation from the last person to see her. We always revert to, this was the last person to see the victim alive, so all the information that we're going to be able to get is going to be from this person. And when that doesn't work out, then you have to start spreading that net and trying to come up with people that know that person as good as anybody, and start picking away at what about this, what about that, and since this hasn't garnered a lot of publicity and there hasn't been a great deal of information released, I'm thinking that tells me that there's a considerable amount of holdback that the cops have come up with, especially as far as who she was talking to, what she was doing, what happened there in Nebraska, how long was she there before she headed back, and did Melodee even make it to Nebraska with her?
Good question here from Isagal Aksu. I'll throw it to Dr. Detective. If the mother insists she was protecting Melodee, at what point does that stop being protection and become abduction? When did she become legally accountable or arrestable? I like that for that. Great question. I mean, I had it here. When can they, arrest this woman if that's what is going to happen here? What do they need, Dr. Detective?
Right. So again, that's a discussion with prosecution, administration, other detectives, other agencies, including FBI and local jurisdictions. Again, it's contingent upon what they have, how far along they are with what they've uncovered forensically. And just as the other two detectives said, I mean, we're behind the eight ball with this, but you want to keep the lines of communication open. So it's really contingent upon, everything that has to be tracked down, everything that has to be checked, vetted, surveillance, again, receipts, bank accounts, and then working from the timeline of before October 7th through up to present, just contingent upon, everything. So the video, the rental, and I know it's kind of hard to, get forensics or DNA from rental cars, but it's a discussion with the prosecutors where we're going with this. Has she lawyered up or not? If not, then can we go back to speak with her again? Maybe speak with her caseworker or case manager if she's had some kind of treatment. So a lot of factors.
Yeah. So we didn't get through all the details. So we left off October 8th. This is when Ashlee, she changes the license plate on this Chevy Malibu to a New York plate, which is David Sarney's old jurisdiction, New York State and New York City specifically. Again, October 9th, the last verified sighting. Now, on October 10th, the very next day, Ashlee returns home to Lompoc County. That's California. She drops the Malibu off with its original California plate back on. So she takes the time here, David, she takes a California plate, puts on a New York plate along the way. Now she's back home in California, puts the California plate back on, and then hands in this car, presumably. Then 4 days later, school officials report her absence. Again, she was being homeschooled, but there were some materials that hadn't been picked up. They get curious. They alert law enforcement. The Santa Barbara County's Sheriff's Office launches a missing person investigation. What do you make of that detail or those set of details, but specifically that she switches the plate, but then switches it back? I mean, it's very intentional, right? But from an investigative standpoint, what do you do with that?
Well, that's another thing you're looking at when she changed the plate. Why did she change it at that time? She could have changed it anywhere between Nebraska and California. She's changed it at that point in time. So is that a particular moment? And that's another thing you look at. Is that a particular moment where Melodee is no longer there? That Melodee is no longer in her possession with her and now left wherever that plate was changed. So this is not a person, and this is why I always go with this mental decline. Is she getting paranoid? Is that something that's come into play where she's becoming more isolated, containing herself and doing that and playing a game with her daughter that we're going to hide from people? But this is more telling because she doesn't change it from where she lives to Nebraska. She only changes it near the end. Is that because something heinous happened at that moment in time that she realized she did something wrong? And not only that, she changed the plate. So this is, again, could this be part of her paranoia, be part of that mental decline that people are talking about? It's possible. But she could have done that at any time going to Nebraska and going to see her family. She did it on her way back. So somewhere along the line, you're looking at that way back when she changed that plate. And that's why the LPRs are important. You still look back at anything she had, any tolls, anything, any credit cards that were utilized by her. And now, if you were not talking to her, you're sitting on her. And that's one thing I guarantee you, there's investigators sitting on that house, sitting on her to see every movement that she makes and anything that she does. And that's another thing. You're looking at the house. You know, the car's been cleaned several times. And we talk about the trunks. How well cleaned is this car? It's been a month since it's happened. You're doing everything. You may be grabbing for straws, but one of that straws might get you to that important lead. So there's a lot. I'll tell you now, everybody's sitting around talking about this, throwing out their ideas. You used to be back in the day, we used an easel. You know, you might put it on a board or a whiteboard and put all these things together. So you're going to look at things that you've done, things you're looking to do, and maybe go back to things that you've already done, because sometimes what you've done may have been missed somewhere along that line of what you've done. So this is those cases, missing person cases, this special category and this is where it is. You know, people go missing all the time. Some people do it voluntarily, but a 9-year-old doesn't go voluntarily missing. And when she does, law enforcement gets involved. The school took a while to get them involved in this, but at least they did something, because she never reported, nor did anybody else, because she's been isolated so well or so much with her, whatever she's been doing in her head.
Yeah. And David, when you say sitting on the house, I don't know if that's the FBI or local jurisdiction, but are they making it obvious, or are they trying to hide, I guess, in plain sight? Do they want her to know that they're watching her, or are they keeping it quiet?
Well, that could be it could be a combination of things. Given the fact of where she lives, it's kind of hard to disappear and hide. But you put surveillance cameras out there and do it that way? You want to be covert or you want to be overt? That's all depending on the agency, how they feel what's best. I think if they're overt, it'll just she's already shut down already. So it looks like nobody's there right now. Could it be a covert operation where they put surveillance cameras around and watched her that way? It all depends on what angle they want to go with. And given the fact this house is in an area that is pretty open, it may not be easy to do it covertly.
Yeah. By the way, STS Nation, I always lean on you guys. I would like to stay on this story. For full disclosure, there's not that much information. If I know you guys know this case better than I do, please feel free to email me and all of us, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. If you've got a particular angle or know something that we don't know, I'm happy to follow it up. So shoot me those emails. I see that. We've got a soundbite from the sister. Before we get there, let me just ask Detective Ramos a question here. Listen, I'm obviously a very horrible, ill-experienced investigator, but there was a question: how did she get the New York plate? I wasn't even thinking about that, but Ramos, you got to run that plate, right? See who owned a vehicle with that plate. What are they doing with that New York license plate?
Yeah, absolutely. You find out everything you can about those plates, who they belong to, were they reported stolen? Did the people that had plates, did they even know that they were missing? Which adds another element of nefarious activity on the mom's part. So where those plates came from, the origin and how she got custody is very, very big and crucial to this investigation. Gives you another place to go and more doors to knock on.
Thank you very much, Tennis Girl 101. We're just getting started here at STS. Climbing up to 200,000 subs. If you appreciate the content, please hit like and sub. But I think we're going to take this to another level between T-ball, soccer, and the 47 other things you do as a parent. But we're going to take this show to the next level. Have no doubt about it. Let's play this soundbite. This is now apparently Melodee's. This is COE. Let me know who this is. This is number one. I didn't know she had a sister. This must be is this the mother's sister? Do we know? I'm going to play it and we'll try to figure it out. And the COE can fill us in. Here we go.
I just been trying to make contact with Ashlee to get answers and hoping that she would tell me something as to where Melodee may be or if she's okay.
And did you get any kind of response at all?
No.
What happened when you knocked on the door? Would she actually come to the door? Would she talk through the door? Would she open the door? Like, describe for me what your interactions were like.
So there was one interaction that I did have with her. Going to the door, I was knocking. I waited for her to come out. I was probably there for about 30 minutes. She finally came out to do the laundry, and that is when the news reporter caught it on camera that I went and spoke with Ashlee, asking her if she's okay, if Melodee's okay, if there's anything I could do for them. She did not answer any questions regarding Melodee. Only to let me know that everything has been hard on her and her mental health, and that she didn't appreciate all the attention she's been getting, and the fact that I was there and knocking at the door when she didn't want to answer.
Did she seem hostile towards you?
No, she doesn't really have like much emotion. Like very just straight face, like no emotion at all.
Okay. COE, can you put that back up, please? This is it right here. Corinna Meza is the older half sister of missing 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard, half sister of Ashlee, Joel, not the child. So there you go. Phil Ramos, you know, she sounds like she was trying to get answers, and that would probably be a good person, but it seems like she is coming up proverbially empty there. What else can you do to sort of lean on the family for help here?
Well, that's about all you can do. Melodee is only 9, and this half sister appears to be considerably older than that. So that's one of the circumstances you'd like to go into. You know, why is there such a big gap as far as the two?
Yeah, I had that wrong. So she's the half sister of the child, not the mother.
Right.
So it's confusing. Yeah. So
right.
That's a huge. That looks like a huge gap in age, right?
Yeah. That would be something that, you know, not that it means anything. I'm not casting any dispersions, but you know, why are there such a different age factor there between the two of them? But and it's likely got nothing to do with the investigation. It's just one of these things that you'd like to know about. The fact that she's herself is saying that she got no cooperation from, but I'm assuming Ashlee's her mother, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, you would think that she's got a good enough relationship with her mom to say, "Mom, what's going on? What happened?
Yeah.
What, where is she?"
Let me rephrase it. As far as I understand it from the stuff I've seen in chat, she's and STS, correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that Ashlee is this woman's mother also, right? So
Yeah,
she would be going to her, right, saying, "Hey, mom, what happened here?"
exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's just another circumstance that leaves you scratching your head. Why is there not a person in the family close to Ashlee, close enough to Ashlee to be able to say, "Tell us what happened. What's going on? We'll help you. Let's find Melodee. What's going on?" The fact that that's not available also lends to, man, just what's going on in her mind. I think it would be significant, and I'm sure that the family members know and the cops know her exact diagnosis of her mental health issues. Exactly what is she suffering from? Because that could have a lot to do with what the mental health professionals would expect. What kind of behavior, what kind of behavior is causing this mental health breakdown?
Yeah, Icicle, who's from Turkey, by the way, Tayo Toy saying, "Hey, she's giving $500. That's Turkish liras, I think." So no idea what the conversion rate, but it doesn't really matter. We appreciate the super chat. Back to you, Detective Ramos. I think you were on the force the longest of any of the guests. I think 30 into the 30 something years. You've seen it all, but how odd is this case where a mom puts a wig on a 9-year-old, travels, changes license plates? Do you recall anything similar to this?
Slightly, but nothing to the point where, I mean, this poor little girl must have been wondering, "Mom, why are you putting a wig on me? Why am I wearing a wig and a hoodie? What's up with that?" That's really unusual. I can't say that all these circumstances that come into play here I've ever seen, I've ever come across. Come across a couple of situations that are similar. Child disappearing while in the custody of a parent, and with no explanation, but not all these little bits and pieces of this puzzle that are coming out.
Mm. And Dr. Detective, someone was asking, great question, isn't changing a license plate in and of itself a crime? You're changing, the identity of the vehicle. Is that enough to potentially charge her in the coming days? Just the fact that she changed plates here.
So that's what we call improper registration, obviously, in the basic form of being illegal, traffic wise or ownership of a vehicle wise. In terms of this, it's going to add to the circumstantial evidence or the forensic evidence to show her actions, her behavior, her actions, her demeanor may all tie into her mental health status or evaluation if that does happen. In fact, it does show a clear sign of guilt. The fact that the plates were changed and then changed back to the original plate before the vehicle's turned back in. So I'm kind of curious. I know a lot of rental cars have odd plates sometimes. But was that stolen? Like Phil mentioned, was it stolen from someone, or was it part of the plan put in action? So again, it can be a sign of guilt. It can be a sign of obvious concern. It's a huge red flag for all of us, obviously. So I mean that just speaks volume to her behavior, even her tearing down the signs. I would actually have them put the signs back up. So again, that may take the right forensically trained examiner to question her and get to what happened. So again, license plate alone is not enough maybe to file charges, but it is a point of discussion.
Yeah.
Definite point of discussion and interview.
I know our next show. Tiff Knox just said she lives 8 miles from this woman's house. That's tomorrow night's show. Tiff Knox puts on a GoPro on her head and knocks on the door and tries to get information.
Joe, let me jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
I have a question for David. David, do the plates in New York stay with the vehicle or do they go with the new owner?
Here's the situation with these plates. Now, it has been in the past that you'd have to return them to New York State Motor Vehicles, but now it seems like you don't. And we have 2 plates in New York. So did she have 1 plate? Did she have 2 plates? Was this plate reported stolen? So is this an old plate? Because we've gone to these flea markets and stuff, and we've seen plates being, sold that way. Is that what happened with this plate? So they've run the plate. I'm gonna gather that, and I'm gonna presume, hopefully, that somebody went to speak to the owner of that plate, the owner of that car. Was there a report made for a stolen plate or a lost plate? So that's one end of it, and that's the one thing you could look at on that end. But what would the relationship be with the plate owner and to, in this case, to Ashlee? We don't know. And that may come out of with that investigation. Hopefully, I'm going to presume that they talked to somebody over there in the DMV and spoke to at least the owner of that plate to get at least an idea how old that plate is. We don't know. And we don't have we don't put like tags on the plate. We don't have tags. We just have the plate itself. So that's why. Is this plate a flea market plate? How old is this plate? That has probably been investigated right now. And smart way is I'm not going to talk about it to anybody. So that might be something that might be a way in which that's one of the pieces of the puzzle they're holding on to, keeping it close to the chest. So you don't want everyone to know what you got. So that's one good thing.
By the way, someone's asking, and it's not a bad idea. So the California plate, 9 Mary Nancy George. I don't know the police alpha letters. Apologies, but 9 Mary Nancy George 101. That's California plate, and then the New York plate, Harold Charlie George 9677. 9677. So, I mean, it's a shot in the dark, but if anyone happens to know anything about these plates, obviously, let us know about that. Meanwhile, David, let me go back to you. We're talking about a potentially a 2,000-mile route here, route, if you say it that way. And Detective Ramos talked about, Vegas is full of cameras, but now we're talking, the Midwest. If you're getting out to, I think it was Nebraska. What do you do with that kind of acreage and mileage that you've got to cover? How do you reconstruct that? Are you using GPS? Are you using tolls? Are you using cell tower pings? Where do you even begin with that?
Well, as much as you can. Hopefully, most of these, I'm hoping most rental cars have some sort of tracking, because when they're stolen or taken away, they kind of have an idea and they kind of notify the police on that. As far as license plate readers, as far as cameras, highway cameras, red light cameras, depending on the jurisdiction, depending on the town that she may have stopped at, because this is a long journey. This is something that you had to stop and get gas and get fuel. How did she get fuel? Did she walk into these stores to do it? Did she use credit cards? So that timeline hopefully has developed. If she used cash, then you're going to go to it's difficult. So you have to look at you're going to have to take the vehicle and go through a tracking system in a sense. If it doesn't have tracking on the vehicle, tracking as far as gas, when she returned the vehicle, was that full? Because they check the car, and that's one good thing about that. When they get the cars back, they look to see any damage, they look to the mileage of the car and see, and then we have to track that mileage from point A to point B. Does she go off from that 2,000-mile route, or from that 2,000, let's say route in May, but does she go off of the lane and move to somewhere else to get gas to get back on? Are there gas stations on that from that point A to point B? And did she go offline to another place to get it? You have those photos, but do all these places have photos? And you're looking at a person, and speculation as it is, a paranoid mind, where she's putting her child in this wig, maybe trying to have her play a game, putting it in that perspective for the kid, and playing this, because these photos you have are old photos. She didn't have a lot of photos of her kid. Something was going on in her mind with this child, where she's able to distance herself from that moment, and that moment of distance may be from when she changed the plates and changed the back. So you really have a lot. You have a lot to go on. That's why it's beneficial for the FBI, because they do have the resources and availability and things that they can do that local law enforcement doesn't have the capacity to do.
Yeah, and Dr. Detective, I mean, we're living in a different world. So what about other digital forensic elements that people might not be thinking about? Like, I'm thinking of maybe an OnStar system, the car data itself, whatever computer this car has. I assume the FBI has the ability to get in there and figure out. I mean, to David's point, did she get off the main, thoroughfare, the highway? At what point did she do that? What does that indicate, et cetera, et cetera? They can track all that, I assume.
Right. So yes, the digital trail and data trail, like David mentioned, it's wide in terms of scope. You're talking about not just cell phones, cell towers, video surveillance, credit card systems. You're talking about maybe obviously the traffic cameras and so forth, but not even that. I mean, even her communications by way of email, by way of other platforms, the history of the vehicle, as you mentioned, the data, maybe using a burla system to go back and see if we can get the data points of, the information from the car. That all I'm sure is being vetted by authorities and definitely FBI. But again, just to consider, her lifestyle, her social network, her family, her friends, colleagues, anyone she may have spoken to, and also, what's the history of reports or previous incidents potentially that could have happened. So even going back as far as when Dad was alive or before. So again, that's a large deep dive into a lot of forensic data trails and points.
This is definitely another issue here, is how isolated Melodee was, homeschooled, family hasn't seen her in a year or more. That kind of control is a major red flag. I would agree with that. Back to Detective Ramos, and there's an art to the interview, and the guy who's done it more than most is Phil Ramos. What are you listening for in this interview? I mean, are you looking for inconsistencies, omissions, anything specific in a case like this that you're going to say to yourself, all right, I got to go back and extend my line of questioning, or man, what she just said, really concerns me now? What sorts of things are you listening for?
I mean, you're looking for everything, any inconsistencies, obviously, and things that she says that just don't fit the scenario that you're asking her about. Just for example, so how far did you get before you had to gas up the car? And if she comes off with, well, no, we made it all the way to Nebraska on a tank full of gas, and there's something wrong there. It's just the way she answers questions, how she answers questions are all indicative of her state of mind. And you keep notes on this, and you remember, you make mental notes and you take written notes so that you can come back at a later point. Because once you catch her in a discrepancy, you don't hit her with it right away. You wait for a little bit until you go full circle and start asking the same questions in a different way later to just kind of confirm the discrepancies that you detected early on in the investigation. And, that's one of the techniques that we use to catch people in lies, because they can't remember all the lies that they're telling you. So you ask the same question in a different way and see if the answer is the same.
Yeah. These guys have all the tricks. Back to Detective Sarney. That car, that rental car, could be potentially a crime scene. I assume it's being processed as one. The problem is it was turned in. I mean, what about the integrity of that crime scene, especially if someone else, if Joe or Janet Smith rented it after her and then drove it to, I don't know, San Diego and back? How problematic is that for you guys?
Well, it's definitely problematic because most vehicles, when they're returned, get cleaned. So I don't know how many times this car has been cleaned and rented out. So that's one thing you look at. When you get the car, you conduct a search warrant. You're going to look for trace evidence as best as possible. You're going to have your crime scene, you go through possible DNA, anything they do, the old-fashioned luminol and all these other things you're going to try to do. The key is, has the car changed in any possible way since this car was rented out? We know it's probably been cleaned, but has there anything been changed since then? Were tires changed? Was the interior cleaned? Was removed? Anything like that? So you get an idea. It is a tainted crime scene. That's the reality. But you at least know there are two people in there that you have. The question is, do we have DNA recovered from the mother? And that's something, because even if you get this and you get all this DNA, you're going to have to do eliminations of everybody. But then, you still don't have the DNA of the mother, because I don't know how much she cooperated. We don't know, and I'm not going to speculate. Did they get DNA samples from her, consent samples from her? Did they get abandonment property from her that they could compare and contrast to DNA that might be found at any of these locations, and especially the vehicle? Because that seems to be the only nexus right now is the car. And if they were driving that long and never stopped anywhere and used that car, there may be something there in that car that may be utilized to identify the persons or persons in there. And if Melodee's DNA, and this is all again speculation, is found in places where a person would not be, there go air by a trunk. Now we have a little more, but this again is all speculation. And can they get anything from this car, because it has probably been cleaned a few times already since it's been returned.
Yeah, 100%. A few more questions and we'll get final thoughts. You are watching some of the best investigators trying to figure out a potential crime in real time. How often do you get to do that? Not often, unless you watch Surviving the Survivor. Dr. Detective, to you. So they have executed multiple search warrants. I mean, if you're working this case, what do you want to get your hands on? Is it the laptop? Is it the cell phone? Is it the car? What are you most interested? What do you think holds the key to your answers?
So several items, of course, of interest. I think you mentioned all of them. The car, most definitely, the cell phone, the router, her devices, her social media accounts. So we're not just looking at the physical devices, but everything in forensics, or the digital data trails, where we can discover, or I guess in terms, seize or request phone records, call logs, email logs, and everything. So again, in conjunction with the cell towers, we're taking as much as we can. And one thing that also stood out to me, the half sister or daughter, when she asked her about what's going on with Melodee, mom switched direction. She shifted back to herself. So that clearly stood out as, a point of interest. Whereas, what is she's like using maybe even misdirection, or that could be a sign of some kind of guilt. And the fact that she's tearing signs down, I'll go back to that again. Again, this is weighing on her conscience, whatever the outcome's going to be. It's weighing on her. So again, please put those signs back up, right? These shows are important to keep Melodee in discussion, spreading the awareness, and then hopefully we can find her best hopeful outcome, alive and well, even if it's with a relative. If there's a relative, come forward, right? So they can only help us at this point. But yeah, we're looking at everything. So it's kind of hard to run down a whole list of items. It's like everything's in place. So that social media, her entire lifestyle, we're working an entire like scope of, not just the victimology, but people of interest, her family, friends, previous coworkers, everything. I definitely would like a forensic psychiatrist or someone to talk with that half sister more in depth, or even the detectives. And I'm sure FBI is going to talk with her as well, if they haven't already.
Thank you, Troy. Back to Phil Ramos. A couple more questions, as I said, and then we'll get some final thoughts here. And I've got to agree, definitely best guests for this particular case. But if you're the lead detective on this case, Ramos, how often are you speaking to this mother? I mean, if she's just sitting there, I guess obviously you're going to say it depends on her level of maybe, cogency and coherence. But how often are you trying to speak to her? Are you bringing her in every day? Are you trying to crack her? What are you doing?
Well, no, by now they would have gotten everything that they're going to get from her. You probably, like David said earlier, they're going to have people sitting on the house, both physically and digitally. There's aspects, tools that we have that I don't want to get into because they'll come into play, but they're keeping track of what she's doing, where she's going, what she's saying, things like that. And you just, you get as much information as you can as soon as you can get it. And then if something comes up earth-shattering, then you go back and talk to her. But at some point, when the questions start getting more direct and, God forbid, the inevitable happens and her body's found, then if she doesn't lawyer up, then there's something wrong with her mental health. We keep going back and beating this mental health issue to death, but that's what's going to come into play here. The other thing we were talking about for evidence gathering is, we've all agreed about the rental car. It's been rented out who knows how many times, but you can always run a cadaver dog on a rental car because there's not going to be more than one dead body in a rental car, and if they ran a cadaver dog through the car, through the house where she was visiting, I'm still not clear if Melodee was with her when she made it to Nebraska, or if she was never there with her. I think that's a question that is very key and has to be followed up on.
Yeah.
But there's so many tools available that we have to keep close to the vest because of the nature of this investigation. And right now, we can't even prove that there was a crime committed.
Yeah. Not pointing fingers in any way at all, but making an observation. If you see a kid who maybe looks like they're dressed up a little bit for Halloween and it's October 7th with a wig on, so a lot of times everyone's instincts are right. So let authorities know. I don't know, if it's hard to tell in this photo, how sort of obvious the child looks. Melodee looks much to me more obvious that she's in a disguise than, let's say, the mother. But if your gut instinct tells you something is off, flag down a police officer and let them know. Saw a horrible story. I want to say it was 48 hours, and it was Northport, Florida, the same town as Brian Laundrie from Gabby Petito infamy, and it was a woman who was abducted just during the day, and a woman called 911, was trailing the guy, lost him. Apparently the 911 never got to the people it was supposed to get to. The woman was the daughter of a very well-known homicide detective in the adjoining county, and she was ultimately shot and killed at point blank range. He's facing the death penalty. I apologize, I can't remember the name of the victim there, but there you go. The CO is saying to me, but the point of the story is someone called 911, did the right thing. It ended up not working in that particular situation. But look at the COE. She is chiming in here. Let me bring up this comment. She says, if you don't know the story, I don't think she looks disguised. She looks like a normal 9-year-old. It's hard to tell. I will agree with you, COE, but it's tough to tell from that photo. I mean, it looks a little wiggy to me, but I don't know. I would probably not notice it. You probably notice it before me, COE. But Detective Ramos, one final question, then we'll get some final thoughts. I mean, this by all accounts was a young girl, 9 years old, who was basically being isolated. I mean, she was homeschooled. Apparently there's no real teachers to talk to about, no friends. Obviously not a fun way to grow up if you're a child. Horrific circumstances. But how does that complicate the investigation that there's really apparently no other source? Even the family said that they were distant. So there's really no one else to kind of turn to get information, because she was essentially kept almost like a prisoner in her own home from these accounts.
Yeah, and that's a difficult thing to get past, because the person that's going to give you the best information is going to be the person that's closest to the victim or the suspect. And in this case, you don't have that well to draw from. Maybe neighbors or friends, they can give you only so much information, but based on what we know, she didn't really confide or talk to very many people at all, which brings into play her state of mind, and who knew just how out there she was as far as her mental health goes. There had to be mandatory reporting parties that had contact with her, and if they surmised or just thought something was not right, and little Melodee was not being properly cared for and was being endangered, they had an obligation to report that to law enforcement, even though there's going to be that confidentiality factor with medical professionals. But medical professionals are bound by, if you see something wrong and you think a child is in danger, you have to report that to the cops.
Yeah. An amazing panel tonight. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You get to see some amazing investigators working on a case right in front of you with their brains cranking. Of course, he is a retired NYPD detective. David Sarney teaches at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, perhaps the best criminal justice school in all the land. Detective Sarney, what are detectives doing tonight? You guys talked about it being all hands on deck. What is happening to move this case forward? Do you expect a break in this case fairly soon?
I couldn't say, but I will tell you they're scouring through any evidence that they're getting, any of the phone records. You got people looking at everything they can. You've got people out in the field, boots on the ground, looking for extra video, continuing, we call that extended video canvas. You're going to work on any other evidence that you have, financial records that you have. You did a dump probably on Ashlee's phone, so you're working on that issue now. You're doing anything you can. You're looking at cells. There's a lot of people doing this. That's why these type of cases, you have a lead investigator who's got to take all that information and summarize it somehow. But you have a lot of people working. And if you have federal agents involved, which you have their side of it. So this is a multi-pronged investigation where you have a lot of different detectives doing different work to get everything together, to get the total facts of this case, and to find out where Melodee is. We know the mother knows, we know all of that, but she's not talking. So we have to do, and investigators are out there looking for the truth, because that's really what it comes down to. And I believe full-heartedly that investigators and detectives are the only ones in any of these cases that look for the truth. Cops on the field are doing their job, making arrests, being involved, but investigators are living these cases. So there's people, the man hours that are put into this case, the dedication is massive. And we have to understand it's not going to happen all in one moment, because there's so much ground to cover and so far behind that eight ball, as I said before, with this case. Something will come up, whether she gets, and it comes down to is, will we find that she committed a crime? Because right now we have nothing. And people want to do something. We have nothing right now. All we have is a missing person, a special category missing. And we're looking to, and these investigators are looking at the best to do to find her. Alive at best, but that, as this case goes, we're not really sure what's going to happen.
And David, if you're working this case, personally speaking, is this the kind of case where you go home and you're having dinner with your family and it's just hard to have a conversation because you're just thinking about this, trying to figure it out?
I will tell you, when you have these cases, you live them. And, I used to tell when I did training for detectives, I said, listen, have no expectation of going home for 4 days, because you never know what's going to come up. And there are cases that will bother you. And I have a feeling this is one of those cases that will make that detective very difficult to live with, because it'll be, honey, I ain't coming home for a few days. And it may be stopping over, getting showered, getting your clothes, getting back out in the field. These are these type of cases that you work. And I have a feeling that what these investigators are doing, that it's 24/7 at this point. You may get a couple hours sleep in the dorm. You might sleep on a desk, get your coffee and get running, but you're looking at every lead. And here's the thing, the leads are going to be pretty much record based. So you're going to be looking at all of these records, and you have to have people, decipher everything that's coming in, and really putting it all together and putting these pieces together to find out what happened to Melodee.
Yeah. Dr. Detective Troy Looney, an active Akron, Ohio detective. He worked homicide. He's worked everything. He does financial crimes now, towards the last few months of his tenure, over 30 years with Akron PD. Troy, how important is the public in this case? I mean, what if someone saw something, saw a young child? We haven't heard, the public hasn't come forward. How important a role does the media and kind of pumping this out to the public, does a case like this take on, knowing that this could have happened several states over?
Absolutely. It is monumental to have the help of the public and the media for all of those reasons. And anytime there's a child involved, missing child, the circumstances, this is going to touch the heartstrings of everyone, just like it touches us, right? Like David said, you live these cases. So the more we can spread awareness, the more we can talk about the case, the more we can share the pictures, the story, maybe someone will call in. So those calls are priceless, because those are all leads we have to shore up, as we call it. We have to check, even if it seems unusual or pretty far-fetched, we still have to delegate to somebody to follow up. So it's like David said, it's all hands on deck. It is a collaborative effort of every agency, every detective specifically engaging. And then you take these home, or you just, having dinner or what have you, something comes to mind, or something you think about, or maybe we can check this. So we're looking at everything, right? So again, the public is very crucial in reporting, sharing ideas, sharing stories, maybe sightings potentially, even if it's not the actual child, but just to share that. And it adds to the timeline also. Like I believe there was the sighting they mentioned about 2 hours ago, that most recent most recent sighting, or last known sighting that they were aware of. That maybe shortens the timeline of what we have to engage.
Yeah, that's a great point. That was, I believe, the Colorado-Utah border. I have it right here. Let me try to find that real quick. Last verified sighting, October 9th. It's a quote here, in the region between the Colorado-Utah border. I don't need to tell all of you how vast that area is. It's just like a vast wilderness out there. So that could be an incredibly daunting task. Just one light moment before we get the final thoughts. So I saw someone sounding the Carm alarm. Carm is lurking. Sounded like that was interesting. Troy, I think that's coming from Troy Looney. That was like the Gong Show right there. But Carm is lurking here. Carm and Nancy Grace, I believe, were on back to back. If you don't think Carm is competitive, she calls me every night, tell me the view totals for Nancy versus her. Now Carm's going to call me screaming that I announced that. But Carm is competitive. She is within 1,000 views of Nancy Grace. I think Nancy Grace would be honored to know that Carm is after her, and I think vice versa. The two have a mutual respect. Who will win? Yeah, when all the views are said and done, will it be Carm? Will it be Nancy Grace? Only time will tell. The man who needs no outroduction, he is Detective Phil Ramos, 30 plus many years at the Las Vegas Metropolitan PD, infiltrated the Cuban mob, carrying $1 million in cash through a casino, homicide detective, rides a Harley, 3-time Officer of the Year, probably no one cooler on, has both ears pierced at his modest age. Guy's a badass. Detective Ramos, your final thoughts. People are screaming at the computer saying, aren't there laws? What are the laws? Why isn't she arrested? What's your answer to that and your final thoughts here?
Yeah, man, we this is so frustrating for the detectives, because in the end, just like everybody has said, we can't prove a crime right now. And you only get one swing of the bat in cases like this. If you're wrong, you're going to let a killer go free. So you have to have it right. And you have to have everything that you are asserting has to be provable. So you can't just say, I'm so sick of this. I'm going to go grab this lady and throw her in jail, and that's it. Okay, so then what? She gets out of jail. You don't have anything ready for court. You can't prove anything. And if you try and arrest her again, once you've gotten enough evidence, then where does your credibility go? Believe me, it is more than frustrating for us as investigators when we're just this close and we know that you did something to your child and we're going to prove it. And you just, like everybody said, I've woken up in the middle of the night with an idea on a case, and you live with this one. And these are the ones that really tear you up when you can't prove them. They really get to you.
There you go. You heard it from real live detectives. One still active in Troy Looney, one legendary, Sarney, a professor, bringing a wealth of knowledge. This is Melodee Buzzard, 9 years old. She basically has not been seen in a month. She was being homeschooled by her mother, Ashlee Buzzard, and the mother took her on a trip in a rental car. She switched license plates, then switched the plates back to California plates, and then arrives back in her home county, Lompoc, California, without Melodee. No one knows where Melodee is. So take a close look at these photos. If you see something, say something. This break in this case could come from the public. I'd like to stay on this. STS Nation, please email me, survivingthesurvivor@gmail. Give me an angle to follow up on. If anyone from the family happens to be watching or listening to this, please email us, survivingthesurvivor@gmail. I would love to get a hold of Melodee's half-sister, Steve Cohen. Maybe we can work on that and see what information we can get. But love you, America. Love you, Lompoc, California. Let's find Melodee Buzzard here. Troy Looney, have a great time in the middle of the Atlantic. Every time you buffered, I pictured you going over a giant rogue wave, but I know you're going to be safe out there. Phil Ramos, be careful on that Harley. And David Sarney, I know you're down here in my neck of the woods. Let's connect. Stick around 1 second. We'll see you all tomorrow, Thursday. We're coming back with reaction to that Drina Bernhard. That's Donna Adelson's jailhouse daughter. We're going to have reaction on that interview. It's a wild interview from last night. And then Carm's coming on Friday to break that down as well. She has a lot of experience working with drug-addicted individuals. And Drina Bernhard very open about being a drug-addicted person. She was arrested 27 times in her life and served time in county jail with Donna Adelson. On that note, love you all. See you tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Guest, stick around with me.